Ah, yes, indeed. The sounds of Rage Against the Machine, the classic Sleep Now in the Fire here on Blue Please on WoW Radio. Head over to the chat room and you can join in the stupidity. That's all I can really call it. We're arguing as to whether or not mages need to be nerfed at the moment, which is quite silly. WCRadio.com, click the IRC chat button at the top of the screen. Here's a hint. Don't say that everybody who plays mages is gay. That's ridiculous, especially as higher banning powers. Anyway, welcome back to the show, although we didn't really go anywhere in the first place. Now, I probably shouldn't have said, yeah, you can have a shout-out on the show, because I've got a ridiculous amount of shout-outs to go through. But I promised I shall provide. Let's see. Who wanted shout-outs? Young wanted a shout-out, but he didn't know why. Oh, you win. Fantastic. Shout-out to Shizzle Dizzle. That's from Widow, whoever the hell that is. Shout-out to P. Drizzle from Minnesota, Kill Jaidan. You win fabulous prizes. Shout out to Bagua, the middle-aged fat man who just hit 60. Congratulations. Shout out to all the UK people on the upcoming server that there's going to be a new guild coming, apparently. This is from James Searson. If you want to check that out, go to wow.notorious on irc.quakenet. Let's see. Shout out to Finbar the Great. And shout out to Shones on the Shattered Hand server. That's from Eldrin. A shout out to Nylan on the Dark Iron server, that's from Dishonor. Let's see. Who else had a shout out? Yes, a shout out to Strife, who apparently couldn't listen to tonight's show, and apparently he's a fool. That one comes from Jay. Loads of shout outs here, this is crazy. A shout out to Hotness, the horribly ironic female gnome warrior, that's on Zuljin. Shout out to Chaos because I'm so elite sauce. Oh dear. Shout out to Iceland on Shattered Hand. And the Lords of Retribution on Kel'Thuzad because we totally owned MC yesterday. Congratulations. Right, that's enough bloody shout outs for the moment. Bloody hell. I'll deal with the other shout outs later. Right, okay, back to the topic at hand. Right, as you just heard in Nubcake News, that was about people who think that Blizzard doesn't know what it's doing. Now, some people think that I'm biased in favour of Blizzard. That is ridiculous. However, I don't see the business sense or the logical sense in biting the hand that feeds. Blizzard give me a game I enjoy and spend a lot of time playing, and Blizzard plug our radio station on their website from time to time. So biting the hand that feeds is not the most sensible and logical thing you can do in this world. I tend to find that when you're given a free lunch, you might as well eat it, rather than throwing it back in the face of whoever it was that actually gave it to you in the first place. However, WoW Radio is an independent organisation. We can and will criticise Blizzard if we feel the need to, but we won't do it for no apparent reason. Blue Please particularly spends most of its time condemning whiners, so why exactly would I be a hypocrite and whine? Don't be totally and completely absurd, people. That's silly. So it's not a case of taking the side of Blizzard, it's the case of taking the side against morons. Unfortunately, Blizzard also happens to be on that side a lot of the time. So the side I end up on is the side that Blizzard is also on. Therefore, I'm accused of bias. Silliness. Insanity. See the logic behind my thoughts. Anyway, the point. This has been going on since the dawn of time. And of course, I don't mean the dawn of time. I mean the dawn of internet playable games. People will start to play these internet playable games, and they will come to the conclusion after an obscene amount of playtime that they know the game better than the developer does. Not only is this highly unlikely, it's also incredibly arrogant. You have to bear in mind that when a company develops a game, they have people working on the long-term kind of plan. They have a vision of what they want the game to be. And generally speaking, they are not going to alter that vision for you, no matter how fantastic you think you are. Whether or not they're right in doing that is a matter of opinion. But there's not a lot you can do about that, because it's their game. I think that's a fair enough thing to say. Now, that doesn't mean that Blizzard or any other company involved in a game which is patched continuously and progresses and evolves from one stage to another is unaccountable for its changes. No, no, no. Companies make mistakes. Often. Sony Online Entertainment, a massive prime example. Made mistakes in every single game it's ever produced. Some of them almost game-breaking. Does it mean they were wrong in making the change in the first place? Yes, of course they were. It was a wrong change. Does it mean they were wrong in believing they could make the change? No. There's the difference. Games companies do have the right to make changes to their own game. No matter what you may say, what you may think, they're going to do it. Often they will never call off a planned change, no matter how much people shout about it. For instance, bear in mind, recent patches have had bugs in them, and they've been released prematurely. Arguably, prematurely when they should be. Now, you've got to look at it from Blizzard's perspective here. Look at it from your standard player's perspective, and you'll see, OMG, Blizzard are noobs, blah, blah, I'm quitting, except I'm not quitting. I'll just say I'm quitting. I'm an attention whore, you know, like people with live journal accounts that say they're going to kill themselves every day of the week. Just get on with it, for God's sake. Take the Linkin Park CD, snap it in half, and remember, Timmy the Razorblade says, down the road, not across the street. I think I'm going to hell after that comment, but never mind. Let's get on with the show. That's what your average whinging player will say. Look at it from Blizzard's perspective. They have a company to run and an online game which they must maintain. People leave this game every day. And one of the reasons for that is they get bored of it. This is inevitable. Absolutely inevitable in every single video game ever devised by man. Yes, even Leisure Suit Larry. You will get bored of it at some point. Now, the idea behind the MMORPG is that you've got to have a constant subscriber base, otherwise it fails. It fails on a financial level, it fails on a community level. You take the massive out of MMORPG, what is it? A subpar role-playing game. So you've got the problem. How do you stop people from leaving? You add new things. You keep people interested. How do you do that? With patches. What happens when you delay patches? More people leave. Business perspective. So, you're Blizzard. You have a choice to make. Do you release a patch with bugs in it? Or do you delay the patch and potentially lose players who get bored of the game? It's a toughie. It's a catch-22. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. An unfortunate position to be in, but the position that any MMORPG developer is put in every day. Can I feel sorry for Blizzard? No, I can't, because Blizzard make a lot of money. Their idea is to make money from selling computer games to us. We are the consumer. We must swallow what they provide, whether it be tasty or otherwise. So it's not a case of feeling pity for Blizzard, it's more a case of feeling pity for those who are incapable of understanding the perspective of the company. And this has been made very apparent indeed in the recent changes to Warriors proposed in the new patch. Oh dear, and oh dear. 33% nerf to defense. Did that annoy people? Oh yeah. Absolutely. Warriors, obviously. Warriors are the ones who use defense gear. Bit of a generalisation. I'm sure there's some other people that use the cloak of warding. I don't know, maybe a feral spec druid. But in general, Warriors got all the defense gear. A lot of guys in my guild use defense gear. They found it to be the most efficient use of stats. It was the best stat for tanking. Understandably so. So it comes down to a question of who knows best. Is it the community? Is it Blizzard? Is it neither or both? Well, Fundgot, one of the community managers on the European forums, posted an explanation about why the defense stat was lowered, or is going to be lowered. This is the explanation apparently that was given by the developers. I'm going to read this out for you if you haven't heard of it already. I quote, "The reason defense was reduced is because it was more powerful than originally intended. It is still the best stat to have if you are the primary melee damage taker. We are confident that tanking will not become significantly more difficult for warriors than it was before, nor do we feel that keeping tanks alive will become increasingly more difficult. Each item in the game has had stats points associated with it in a budget system." So apparently this is how they create their items. They have a budget, and they can't go over that budget for, say, a blue in comparison to an epic. Before the change, defense was going over the allocated budget. This was because of a miscalculation on our part, which led us to believe the stat was worth less than it really was. By lowering the defense stat on all items, we have brought the stat value back to where we want it to be. Key words here: where we want it to be. We want it. Strategic design plan. Long-term thoughts. In regard to raid encounters, we will continue to watch them closely and make adjustments as needed. We've been making raid encounters more manageable from a gameplay standpoint, and we do not feel that the defense change is going to make a drastic difference. In addition, we'll be performing further research on the public test realms to see how much of an impact this change will have on the game. And adjustments will be made where needed. Any adjustments will most likely be made to monsters, as we do not want to go over the stat budget again. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So what you have here, an explanation from the developers. Firstly, I would be thankful to the developers for actually giving you an explanation in the first place. They didn't have to. It could be the work experience guy being silly. Say, hey, work experience guy, you get to pick what we nerf this week. This week, I'm going to nerf defense, because it's funny and I'm not a warrior. Yay! Or maybe it's because they're telling the truth. It's a crazy concept. Absolutely insane concept to grasp, I know. It's madness, folks. They may actually be telling the truth to you. But this is their overall design perspective, and this is one of their design flaws. They are obliged to fix it, whether or not it is a buff to warriors or otherwise, and whether or not the change will be a nerf to warriors or otherwise. They're obliged to stay with their design standpoint and correct errors. This has happened in the past, mainly with fixes which have either nerfed or buffed a class. This is nothing more than a fix. Whether or not it is the correct fix is a different matter entirely. I'm not even going to pretend to understand how main tanking works, because I don't have a main tank. My warrior is level 19. I don't main tank anything. So I'm not going to comment on that. What I'm going to comment on is the fact that if Blizzard says they want to change this stat, neither hell or high water is going to stop them. They will change it, and if there is a problem, they will change it back. There are no magical incantations of ultimate sorcery required to change things back to the way they were. No, just a patch. It's only a patch. Just a patch. So if something goes wrong, they are quite capable of changing it. They have the means to change it. But why can't we grasp this simple fact? I'm not going to lecture you about these, even though I just have for the past 8 minutes or whatever. Yes, the community is a very important aspect to WoW as far as the design goes. Feedback from the community, massive influence on what the developers have to say. Would Zul'Gurub have even been introduced to the test server of the game? Would it even have been designed were it not for the community's demand for a casual quote-unquote raid instance? Maybe, maybe not. Would we have got Blackwing Lair? Would we have got another battleground in a different form? I don't know. I'm not Blizzard. But I can safely say I reckon the community was a very strong influence in those, and it will continue to be a strong influence until the day WoW dies. Is it too much to ask? Trust of a faceless corporation? Maybe. But it is only a video game after all. And in the end of the day, when you signed up to WoW, you signed up to a changing, evolving game. And that is exactly what you should be expecting. And at the end of the day, if all else fails, they can always change it back. And that's what I have to say on the defense nerf. Or fix, as you may wish to call it. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. That hour of the show coming up. Ask the Murloc rap in the forums. Some more of your suggestions on working as intended. And of course, the one and only imbecile of the week. I want to play some Bad Religion. My favourite company? What am I talking about? My favourite punk band in the world. Possibly the only punk band I like in the world. It's called The Walk. Enjoy.